We all have experienced this before. We get into a conversation with a salesperson thinking you would not be persuaded by slick talks, and then end up buying things you don't really need. So today we're going to be talking about the weapons of influence. In the modern world, everything around us is filled with information. There is so much information out there that it is often hard to make objective and rational decisions whether we should buy something or not. Therefore, our brain is programmed to use shortcuts to help us make these decisions. These shortcuts work most of the time, and that is why we keep using them, even though it can also be very wrong, especially when our brain is being purposefully misled. For example, when something is on sale, we are more likely to buy it because most of the time it will be a good decision. Stores are very aware of this fact, which is why they sometimes first raise the price of a product and then put it on sale, while in reality you are paying the exact same price or even more. This tactic is used especially in online stores, but sometimes also at your local grocery store. In order to avoid falling into this trap, you should always research the price of the same product or a different product of similar quality to find out whether you are really paying less or are you really paying more. Another example that we often associate expensive with good. Let's say we want to buy the best quality smartphone out there. Our brain will automatically tell us to look at the most expensive ones instead of the cheaper ones first, because most of the time, expensive means quality. If you really want the best quality, it is really important to do extensive research to find out what is really the best, regardless of the price. Even though we are aware that our brain is using these shortcuts, it is not always easy to deal with it, especially when you're dealing with salespeople who are using these influential techniques, also known as weapons of influence. There are thousands of ways to influence people individually, but there are only 6 of them that are universal. Salespeople around the world use the 6 weapons of influence to persuade you into buying things you might later realize you didn't even want to buy. The rule of reciprocation. When someone gives you something, you'll feel obligated to give them something in return, because we humans in general don't like to feel indebted to someone. This is called the rule of reciprocation. The rule of reciprocation is a very powerful rule because it applies to all human societies, regardless of culture or religion, and it also works on people that don't even like each other. The Hare Krishna Society has used this rule to great effect. They give small gifts to pedestrians like a book or a flower. After the unexpected pedestrian accepts the gift, they will follow up by asking whether they want to donate to their religious organization. The pedestrians will most likely donate just because they feel like they are in debt and end up donating more money than the actual worth of the gift. Reciprocating requests, also known as the rejection then retreat technique, is reciprocation without actually giving. Sometimes when you turn down a salesperson's first request, they will follow up with a second request, which is relatively smaller. Because you turned them down the first time, it will create a feeling of indebtedness, which makes you feel more obligated to say yes to a smaller request that follows. In order to say no to salespeople who use the rule of reciprocation, you have to counter it using the same exact rule. Favors should be returned by favors, and exploitations should be returned by exploitations. A favor is when someone gives you something without expecting something from you in return, while an exploitation is when someone gives you something with a goal of wanting something from you in return, perhaps in a bigger value. When you are aware that someone is using this rule of exploitation, you are reciprocating by just saying no to their request. Keep in mind that you're reciprocating exploitation and not favor. Consistency and commitment. When a telephone solicitor calls, they may ask you how are you doing by asking the question, how are you feeling? If you answer positively to this question, they will proceed to ask for donations for those who aren't doing so well. In our society, being seen as a consistent person is a good thing, and being seen as an inconsistent person is a bad thing. With this in mind, we often tend to fool ourselves to keep thoughts and beliefs consistent with what we have already done. Automobile dealers can sell you a car with a good deal, leading to you making the decision on purchasing the vehicle. Once you've made the decision, the dealer tells you that there were some miscalculations in the pricing, and the price ends up a lot higher than was mentioned. Now you're already in the process of purchasing the vehicle. It'll feel like it's too late to back down since you committed to the purchase. If you've recognized that the automobile dealership had set you up, tell them that you'll only take the car at the price mentioned before their miscalculations, or just simply leave. You wouldn't want to buy a vehicle through a shady dealership, by the way. The easiest way to deal with salespeople using consistency and commitment is by not allowing yourself to be locked in such situations. But once you found yourself trapped, you can point out exactly what they are doing to manipulate you, since it's not always easy to recognize these situations beforehand either way. Social proof. In order to determine what is correct, we try to find out what other people think is correct. The issue with social proof is that the greater number of people who find an idea correct, the more an idea will be considered correct, even though it was a false idea to begin with. When a Yelp review has less than 4 stars, majority of people would think that the restaurant is probably not so good when they come across the page. But in reality, the food or service can actually be top notch. For example, majority of people who like the restaurant enjoy the service and food, but they never really write reviews on Yelp, while a group of active Yelp reviewers could have tried it and it just wasn't their taste and wrote a bad review. Also keep in mind that bad performing restaurants can pay people to place fake 5-star reviews to increase their average stars. In the US, it is normal to tip at a restaurant, and it is seen as impolite if you don't. While in Japan, tipping at a restaurant is seen as an insult. This is an example of how social proof depends on what majority of people think. Clubs often use ways to make their queues longer, so from the outside it looks like it is really busy, while in reality this is not the case. Any type of social proof should never be trusted fully. Social proof can be faked, and most people, when uncertain, will first look at what other people think, while the people they look at are also people who look at what other people think. Monkey me, monkey do. Do not fall for the trap of social proof. We will have to look at the objective facts, our past experience, and our own judgments. Liking. When we like or know someone, we are more likely to say yes at their request. However, total strangers can also use this simple rule to get us to comply with their request. Many salespeople combine liking with reciprocating requests. They will pitch you their product or service first, while in reality, their main goal is to get friend referrals from you. Because you've denied their first request, they will follow up with a second request and ask you if you know other people who may be interested in their products or services. Then they will contact those people and tell them that you suggested them. We like people who are similar to us or associate with similar things as we do. Many sales training programs teach their trainees to mirror and match the customer's body posture, mood, and verbal style. We also like people who are physically attractive because we subconsciously assume that they have favorable traits like talent, kindness, honesty, or intelligence. Lastly, we are all suckers for flattery. We like to get compliments. We like people who give us compliments, regardless of whether they are true or not. In order to deal with the liking rule, it is a good idea to separate how you are feeling about the requester and the request. Look at the request objectively, without associating the requester with the request. Authority. Authority is a widely accepted system in the society. It allows the development of sophisticated structures for resource production, trade, defense, and expansion that would otherwise not exist. We are trained from birth that obedience to authority is the right thing to do and disobedience is not. But authority does not mean the person's expertise is flawless. According to the US Healthcare Financing Administration, 12% of daily medication are given at error because we assume that the doctors and pharmaceutics know best. The other problem with the rule of authority is that we can easily be fooled by it. Someone who appears like an authority is enough to make us think that they're in a position of authority. For example, a TV actor who has played a role as a doctor in a movie can be speaking in a TV commercial and people will take his word as if he is a real doctor. Or another example, a person who is wearing a uniform representing a parking enforcement officer can easily trick us to pay him a fine, while in reality, it's just nothing but a con artist wearing a uniform. To avoid falling into this trap, it is important to increase your sense of awareness for authority power. Recognize how easy authority symbols can be faked and how to spot real expertise. There are 2 questions you can ask yourself to find out whether you should follow or resist the person in authority. Is this authority truly an expert? Look for the authority's credentials and evidence for authority status. Or, how truthful can we expect the expert to be? Authorities are in the end still human, just like us all. They may not present their information honestly to us. For example, they could have been paid an enormous amount of money to say something untruthful. And lastly, they could also be bluffing because they know that most people will believe them anyways. Scarcity. Opportunities seem more valuable to us when their availability is limited. People are more motivated by the thought of losing something than by the thought of gaining something. Even though about the quality of the product is not changed at all, we desire it more because it's just scarce. The most straightforward use of scarcity principle in sales is the limited number tactic. Think of things like concert tickets with limited availability, an ongoing sale that has a time limit, or when a resource is running out like cryptocurrencies. The Romeo and Juliet effect is when something is forbidden, it is more desirable. For example, underage teenagers and alcohol. Because they are legally not allowed to buy drinks, they desire it more. When the opportunity to drink is being presented to them, they often end up drinking way more than they should be. When we feel the tide of emotional arousal that flows from scarcity influence, it is important to use that rise of arousal as a signal to stop short and calm down and ask ourselves two questions about why we want the item under consideration. 1. Do you want the item for the purpose of owning it? Then we should count its availability as a method of valuation. 2. Do you want the item for its function? Then we should remember that the item under consideration will function equally well regardless of availability. Just because a specific type of food is scarce does not make it taste any better. The 6 weapons of influence are taught in depth in the book Influence: The Science of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. If you want to learn more about this subject, I recommend you to read this book. You can find an Amazon affiliate link in the description below where you can buy the book. In order to improve yourself every day, it is important to expose yourself to high quality information that you can get from books. But with so many distractions nowadays like social media, Netflix, and video games, it requires a lot of willpower and focus to grab a book and actually read it. If you are one of these people, I highly recommend you to start listening to audiobooks. With the audible.com mobile app, you can plug in earphones and expose yourself to books while doing day-to-day things such as chores, walking, traveling, working out, and even while playing video games. We at Self-Improvement have teamed up with Audible to bring you a special offer to try Audible. Click on the link in the description below and sign up for a free trial and get your first 2 audiobooks for free. These were the 6 weapons of influence and how to say no to them when used by salespeople. Have you ever done something or bought something you later regret because you were influenced by one of these 6 rules? Let us know down in the comments below. Did you find this video helpful? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to get notified when a new self-improvement video is up.